Welcome to another episode of Tips from My Garage. My name is Lisiate Tonga. I am a recovering addict, a father of two boys, husband to a beautiful wife. I'm a business owner and an author. And today I want to talk to you about, I want to talk specifically to those of you who are looking to or are thinking about making or taking a leap of faith and jumping into the deep end and changing your lives for the better, trying to, whether that's trying to escape a lifestyle that is not productive, whether you're trying to overcome an addiction or whether you're just trying to break a habit that you think is hindering you and preventing you from becoming the best that you can be. And I also want to tell you that if you are contemplating making that change, taking that leap of faith now, that this is actually the best time to do it, given the time of the year. We are in the middle of November now and going into December soon and the end of the year. And the reason why I think it is a good idea and a good time is because you're not waiting until the first of the year to make New Year's resolutions and starting on January 1st. I think it's better to create the momentum now where you're leading up to the end of the year so that when the new year does come, you hit the ground running. And I see often people trying to make that want to make New Year's resolutions. What they end up doing is making promises to themselves and to other people that this is going to be my last hurrah, that this New Year's Eve is going to be it. I will party like it's 1999, and after the clock strikes 12, then that's it for me. And I used to be one of those people who had made that promise on New Year's Eve. I never did keep that promise because when 12 o'clock midnight came, I was just hitting my strides and I would continue on through to the early hours of the morning. And by then, I was either too burnt out or brain dead or hungover or all of it that I couldn't really think too much about I couldn't process my goals or the idea of moving on from my my vices because I just didn't have the brain power to actually do it. And I came to a point where I would just throw my hands up and go, maybe next year we'll try it again, or maybe tomorrow. I mean, if you lie to yourself about it and just push or kick the can down the road, it makes you feel a little bit better. So you can tell yourself, oh, I'll start tomorrow or I'll start next week. Or if it's a Friday, then maybe you'll wait until Monday the following week and then you'll start. And in the meantime, you have this gap or this space that you have made no commitments to or for. And so what you end up doing is filling that space or that gap with things that you shouldn't be doing or with your vices so that you can fill up as much time as you possibly can so that maybe you will reach a point where you feel like you're sick of it or you don't want to do it anymore. And that's the hope, is that you feel like that on Monday, that I've done it. I've had it. I'm sick. I don't want to do this anymore. And that might give you the motivation to start. So that was the long-winded way of saying or trying to sell to you that it is a better idea for you to start now when you can create momentum at a nice pace. And by the time January comes around, you hit the ground running instead of starting from square one. And perhaps that'll help you make better decisions come the New Year's because you're already creating momentum. You might make better decisions for your New Year's plans so that you can keep that momentum going. And so you have a lot of things that you can do that will be helpful. What I want to talk to you about today is, if for those of you who are seriously contemplating or even just dabbling with the idea of making a change, there are some things that I don't want to sugarcoat for you because I don't want you to have any preconceived misconceptions about what it's going to be like when you make that decision and you begin your journey. And although I do want this to be a smoother and easy transition, there are certain things that I don't feel are easy to talk about. And because they're not easy to talk about, I don't think that they're easy for people to accept. And so I would like to preface it with this. So what I want to talk about today is getting comfortable, the things you need to get comfortable with once you make that leap of faith, once you make that decision to change, once you make that commitment and you press the start button and you have the wheels in motions, there are some things that you want to get comfortable with. But I do want to preface it with this. I want to say that in order for you to grasp these ideas that I'm going to share with you, you need to use there are two parts of your brain, and well, there are a lot of parts to your brains, obviously, but there are two in particular that we spend a lot of time in, and that's one part of our brain is our neocortex, which is where you do all your logical thinking, and then you have your midbrain, which is where you experience things emotionally. And so in order for me to be able to convey these ideas and for you to be able to be accepting of them, or being able to look at them without reservation or without judgment and just purely on observation out of curiosity, is your logical part of your brain, your neocortex. I don't want you to get emotional or get your emotions involved in trying to calculate these things that I'm going to be sharing with you, because that part of your brain is very good at moving you away from what you really need to do in order for you to make changes, significant changes in your life, because your emotional part of the brain will sell to you the fact that these things are going to be painful and hurtful to the point where it will deter you from making this decision in the first place. And the reason that this is not good is because the truth of the matter is you will experience more pain in your life by not making a decision, by continuing on the road that you're currently on, by continuing to indulge in your vices and lead a reckless lifestyle and to live for the moment. You may not you may not experience any of those pains immediately because you're working so hard to escape your reality, to be numb to your reality so that you don't know what's happening, so that you're unconscious to what's really going on in your life. And so when you work so diligently to escape your reality, it's really hard for you to see things as they are. And if you don't see things the way that they are, it's a matter of time before what it's a matter of time before everything will break down and unravel itself, and that can manifest in many different ways. And that's really a scary place to be once you do reach that point. Once you and by the time you come to a realization of what's really happening to your life, often it's too late. And so we want to steer clear of that. We want to see things before they happen. We want to catch ourselves before we make bad decisions that are going to affect us for the rest of our lives. So, in short, use your logical thinking when you're absorbing the information that I'm giving to you. Keep your emotions out of it and just observe without judgment. And if you can do that, then you'll be able to see the reasons for why I'm sharing these with you and why they are necessary for you to understand when you're making a decision to change your life. And so the first thing I want to share with you is what you have to get comfortable with is you have to be comfortable with being lonely. And I think that this one is one of the toughest things to do when you're changing your life is when you make a significant change, and if it means that you have to walk away from everything that you know, that means that you're going to be spending time on your own and by yourself. And that's not easy to do because you well, us as human beings, innately we yearn for companionship. We want to belong. We want to fit in. We want to be validated. We don't want to we don't want to be on our own, experiencing life on our own, experiencing hardships on our own. We want to be around people. But the truth of the matter is that you there are going to be moments where you will have to be on your own because you and there's many reasons why you can. It may be because you might have to forego going to a party or to a club or to a bar where you're going to meet up with your friends where you normally meet up with, or you might go to a friend's house, or you might these are things that are in your regular routine that you would just do without thinking. If you're having to separate yourself from these people or from these places, then you are going to spend time on your own. And one thing I would say just about being on your own, I think that there is a difference between being lonely and being alone. And I think that being lonely is when you feel disconnected and when you feel like you're by yourself, like you're being denied connection to someone else or to something else. It's when you yearn to be with others, when your heart yearns for those things, when you feel a void, and that void gives you anxiety or pain in some sort of way or some sort of discomfort. I think that that's what being lonely feels like. However, being alone, if you could make time to be alone, if you could schedule it into your life, if it could be something that you're doing purposefully, like you're willingly choosing to be by yourself and for the purpose of bettering yourself in whatever way that may be, that feels different. That being alone seems more like a choice, whereas being lonely doesn't feel like it's a choice. It feels, pardon me, like a burden that's being put on you, like you didn't have any control of it. But if you choose to be alone, if you choose to be on your own for the purpose, for the greater purpose, for the purpose of bettering yourself, this is a better way to accept accept the time that you will be by yourself. And so those are a couple of different ways that you can look at loneliness or being alone or being lonely. One I feel is productive, the other counterproductive. But I do believe that if you purposely choose, and when you are, and let me just say this, that if you are choosing to change your life for the better, then you are definitely choosing to be alone. And that then is a choice that you've made, uh, to be on your own, but for the better good. And when you do it that way, it actually feels, I don't want to say that it doesn't feel, that it feels great, because being alone is being alone. But when you're choosing to be that for your own good, it is easier for you to do. It is easier for you to accept, because you you know that you're going to become stronger as a result. And I believe that that does help you to stay the course. Being lonely is a huge breaking point, because people be alone for so long, but then they might feel, oh, this is too much for me to handle. And then what they will do is they will return back to their networks or the people whom they believe love them, and those people who are influencing them in perhaps not the best way, even though they know that they're not the right people to be with, because then they can have companionship again, then they can feel connected again. And so that's a really big one. That's a really big one. I think that if you can manage being alone on your own for periods of times, and if you can be in the state of mind where you know that you're choosing to be alone because you're going to become a better person for it, that will definitely help you to stay the course. You can do it, but it's not easy, but it's something that you need to accept. It's a part of the journey that you have to go through. You have to embrace it. You can't just say, okay, loneliness is just part of it. It's like, let's try and embrace it. Let's just, this is part of it all. So let's accept that this is one of the challenges, that one of the steps that we have to go through in order for us to get to a better life. Let's embrace it. The other thing you need to get comfortable with is the people that you have in your life now may not be there later. So this is also another hard one, because I mean, how long have you known some of these people? They could also be family members. They could be relatives. They could be friends you grew up with. There were people you've known your whole lives, possibly 2, 3 decades, 4 decades, and you might ask yourself, well, how do I walk away from that? How do I even go about doing that? Like, they won't even let me walk away from them. That's one part of the challenge, is how do I actually go about, telling these people, the people that I love, the people that I have such strong relationships with, how do I go about saying to them, hey, we have to go our separate ways? That's not easy to do, but it's something that you have to get comfortable with, the fact that you are going to part ways. And I remember when I was going through this used to be a really big stickler for me, because of the networks that I had created. I had some such strong relationships and people in my life that I had sworn loyalty to, that I would never leave, or we would always be together. We would never be apart. And if most of the people that you were hanging out with were in the same lifestyle that you needed to walk away from, then that's your lonely that's where you're going into the loneliness area now, where you have to start thinking about, okay, I have to be away from these people, I'm going to be alone. And so these two things can you can feel the weight of both of those two things. You've got the weight of losing your loved ones and your friends, and then you have the weight of being alone. And this combination is has been what has unraveled so many people when they have tried to go down the road to recovery, because they can't be alone, and they can't say to their friends, they can't walk away from them, and they don't want to walk away from them, because these are people that have been in their lives forever. They're intertwined. They're not just loyal to each other, they love each other. And so that's a very tough combination. The way that I was able to get through that part, because I did still spend a lot of time with my friends after I had made the decision to change. I swore to my friends I would never leave them, so I would continue to spend time with them, to continue to have my routines as they were. But it just started to not feel right anymore. I started to become a square peg in a round hole, because when I would go out, I was also trying not to engage in any of the activities, extracurricular activities that we were always engaged in. And when you're not connected on that same level, it's I found it difficult to conversate, to talk, to be able to have any sort of commonality, because that's where our commonality was. It was in a heightened state where we were sedated in one way or another. And when you're sedated, it's much easier for your conversation to flow. But the top topics and the subjects and the things that you talk about, they always flowed as well. But it was difficult for me to engage in that flow because I wasn't on that same level. And that just was awkward. And so for me, even though I wanted so much to keep those relationships, it just started to feel like the connection was being organically dissolved because of the directions of our lives. So what I want to say is, you have to get comfortable with the idea that the people that are in your life now may not be in your life later. And I'm not saying that everyone is going to leave your life, because that's not true for me, because I still have a lot of friends that I'm still close to, very close to, that I still have good connections with and relationships with, that are that are still that still live that kind of lifestyle, but they have just become accepting of who I am and the direction that I was going. And that's how I really knew who was really going to stick around, and who really did, or who really does love me as a friend. And so a lot of my relationships dissolved, and those were the ones that I knew were on a superficial level anyway. And the ones that stayed, even though I had made the change, were the ones that I knew were going to be close to me no matter what. And I guess that was a good way for me to filter out who belonged in my life and who didn't. But that sort of just happened organically.
That sort of just unfolded organically. But I just want you to understand that, you've just got to be you've got to get comfortable. That's one thing you need to accept, is that there are people in your lives and that have been in your life probably such great relationships with, and who may not be in your life later. And I can tell you that as well. If those relationships end up dissolving, and those people go their separate ways in your life, then they weren't meant to be in your life, and you're actually better for it that they're not in your life anymore. But what it also does is it creates more room for you to attract people that do belong in your life, people who can build you up, people who can support you, people that can become a part of a real and a true foundation in your life. And that's really what happened to me. I lost a lot of relationships, but I attracted a lot of the correct and the right relationships in my life. And they have then become the backbone or the foundation of my life and my support networks. And those are genuine. And they may not be a lot of them, but they're genuine, and they're real and they're true. And so that's the good side of losing people who are close to you. I can also say that, some people will say, look, these people, I'm so close to them, I love them, I'll never leave them. They could be also the reason why you never get ahead in life, why you never make that change, why you never take that leap of faith. And so what you will need to work out or weigh out is whether or not that's worth it. Those relationships that you're wanting to keep in your life, that are hindering you from becoming the best person that you can be, or perhaps becoming successful in your own right. Is that worth it, and do they deserve to have that much power over you? So that's what I would encourage you to ask yourself: is are they worth you giving up your life for? In a sense, not physically giving up your life, but you know what I mean. Another thing that you need to get comfortable with is the places that you go and the things that you do. The places that you go, you won't be going to anymore, and the things that you do, you won't be doing anymore. You have to be comfortable with that. You might have a routine where you have certain bars and clubs that you go to, certain houses that you go to, and that might be on repeat. And this is something that you might live week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. And these might be places that you frequent 2 3 times a week, even more. You have to get comfortable with not ever going to those places again, and not ever doing those things that you've always been doing again. Is that tough for you? Or I'm not sure if that is, if that would be hard for you to picture in your head, you not being able to go to the same places that you've always gone to. For me, I had a routine where it was like this, year in, year out, month in, month out, where I frequented the same places, the same clubs, the same bars, the same houses, the same people. And so making a change, trying to change my lifestyle, meant that I had to try and stop going to these places. And you might think that that's something easy to do, but for me, it wasn't so easy, because it almost feels like there's a part of your identity that these places be collectively are a part of who you are. It's almost like that show Cheers on TV, where you have the guys going into the bars, and hi Norm, and they're sitting down, eating the peanuts on the same stool, drinking the same beer, talking to the same beer tenders. Everybody knows you by name. That's that becomes a part of who you are. That becomes a part of your identity. So for me personally, that wasn't something so easy to give up, because when you stop going to these places, it's like a part of you gets taken away from you, and it's almost like you become a little bit less of who you are. It's like a part of you is being ripped out, and it's like there's a void there now. It's like, okay, and then if there's another place, and if there's another place, and if you're losing friends, those are all parts of you that are getting shredded or torn away from you. And that's how it felt for me anyway. I guess for me, I was very emotionally attached to my lifestyle and to to everything about it, and I was so invested in it. So it was an emotional thing. All of it's an emotional thing. So if it's easy for you to just say, oh, okay, I don't have to go there anymore, that's great. I just couldn't. It just didn't happen for me that way. And I would encourage people to move on as quick as possible and not try and reminisce too much. Try not to dwell in the past too much, because that's when you get caught in those nostalgic traps where you're reminiscing, and you're living in your past, and your heart yearns to be in these places. Your heart yearns to be with these people. And so I guess for me, that's why I preface it with taking everything that I'm sharing with you with a logical way of thinking, as opposed to an emotional way of thinking, because it's easier to deal with. The last thing I want to share with you about getting comfortable with is, you have to get comfortable with pain, and you have to get accustomed with pain and suffering. And I know that's no one wants to go through pain. Everyone is trying to avoid pain as much as they can. So change isn't easy. It's not easy for a lot of these other reasons that I had spoke to you about earlier. But the reason why is because of this reason here, is because you feel pain. Being lonely is painful. Being away from your loved ones is painful. Disconnecting yourself from places and the things that you do is painful. Knowing that your life is never going to look the same way that it has, that could be painful as well. Although at the same time, it could arouse your curiosity as to, wow, well, if my life it's not going to look like that anymore, I wonder what it will look like. And that's up my hope for you, is that you will look at that as, hey, I'm not losing a life, I'm gaining a life. And that would be the other side of this coin, is that, is the things that you'll have to look forward to, because you have a fresh canvas, and you'll be able to paint your own picture now, and you can recreate yourself. And this is something that us as human beings are well capable of doing, adapting to our environments, and creating ourselves and recreating ourselves. And I think that that's something that we should always be striving to do, is to recreate ourselves, to make ourselves the best versions of ourselves that we can be. But some people will cannot see themselves not living the life that they're living currently at the moment. And that would be difficult for people, because it would be painful to think about not having the life that you have now. You have a choice with pain, actually. You can choose to experience the pain now, or you can prolong it and experience the pain later. But whenever the pain is being prolonged, it's always worse. It really is. Because the pain that is prolonged, it doesn't just come, it comes with every sort of pain. It comes with physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, And these pains are and will be far worse than the pain that you will of discomfort that you'll experience now. And not only are they far worse, but they can be deadly, and they can take your life if you're not careful, and if you don't make the right decisions, that it can cost you your life. And that's the ultimate pain, because that pain doesn't just include personal pain, but it also includes pain for loved ones, pain that you didn't wish anyone else to experience, but they did as a result of the decisions that you had made. So you can either choose to feel the pain today and start now and experience the growth pains, the pains of loneliness, the pains of leaving relationships behind, the pain of leaving your environment behind, your life behind, the physical pains that you'll experience, the emotional pain, the psychological pain that you'll experience now, so that you can have a better life later that will be full, that will be more fulfilling, that will be more meaningful, that will be a life worth living, that won't be an existence, but will be a life that you can be proud of, and a life that you can recall with great fondness. And then this stage up until now, this life that you had led up until now, can be part of an amazing story, and an amazing story that you wrote. You know, those are the best stories. Those comeback stories that that people talk about. You know, they're the most inspiring. They're the ones that are the most compelling. And that those stories are the ones that are not just great for you to be able to share with you and your loved ones, but they help other people. They in turn help other people to create their own stories, to create better stories for themselves. And that's a more meaningful existence. That's a more meaningful life. That's just not going through motions. That's living with something to live for. And so if you can get comfortable with all of these things that we talked about, or that I talked about just now, then you're ready to you're ready to take that leap of faith. You're ready to make change. But if you can't get comfortable with these things, then you can still try, and people still do try, but it's never it's unsustainable, because eventually at one of those levels something breaks down. And I guess this why I'm so passionate about helping other people to have better lives, because I had gone through these experiences on my own, and I had to juggle all of this by myself, not knowing how to get through, or how I was going to get through the different phases or stages that I went through. I didn't even know them. I had to actually go back through my life to start labeling things so that I could understand what stages I was at. And now I have a better understanding of what actually happened, and I have a better understanding now of what can be done better, and how people can make true true changes and life-changing decisions in their lives, so that they can have more meaningful lives and live with more purpose. If you can get comfortable real quick with being alone, being away from people who are influencing you negatively, being away from the places that you frequent that also influence you negatively, and being able to accept that pain is a part of the journey, then you can make some real change. Anyways, I hope that this finds you well. I hope you got something out of this. Leave me some feedback. Let me know what your thoughts are. I wish you all the best. if you're taking this journey. And I look forward to talking to you next time. Peace, love, and God bless you all.